Okay, so you move that. I'll second the minutes. Any discussion?
No.
All right, all in favor? Aye. And that would be no opposition since it's just us two. So the motion, the minutes pass, and now we've got two sets.
Yes, I have both of them.
Yep, so.
I'll move both sets.
All right, that's great. So that's items 1 through 3 and then 1 and 2 on the second sheet.
Yes.
Great. I'll second those. Any discussion on the items? Okay, all in favor of the 5 items, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great. Then those motions carry and we can be adjourned. Thanks, Mike.
Here we go. All righty.
Okay, thank you. Because we're gonna have a little length of the agenda, we're 2 minutes before you start, but we're gonna start. I'm gonna call the Wednesday, April the 7th committee meetings to order. The first thing on the agenda is committee of the whole, discussion of boards and commission vacancy. Amy, you wanna go down the list?
Yeah, sure. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we have a few openings due to a few people moving around. We had someone that was hired by the city, so we needed to fill that position. And then we had someone that moved from the Fair Housing Board into the Board of Zoning Appeals. So that opened up a couple positions. So we have one open for the Board of Zoning Appeals. We didn't have any applicants for that one, unfortunately. Also for the Design and Preservation Committee. We do have one vacancy for the Fair Housing Board, and we have 2 applicants, Jennifer Nichols and Kaylee Verado Zucchero. So those 2 both applied for the Fair Housing Board, and their applications are in the packet. And then the other 2 boards and conditions, we have the Loan Review Board and the Storm District Review and Appeals Board, where we have a position in each of those, and no one has applied.
All right, we're only gonna deal with the Fair Housing Board, and if there's no questions other than us going in executive session after this meeting, anybody else have anything to say? If not, we're gonna move on to Civil Court Management System. Patty Long and Amy Wilkins.
So yeah, Amy and Patty cornered me this morning and said, "You want to introduce it for us?" And I said, sure, I'll introduce
right.
it. So no, that's totally fine. So this is sort of a next evolution or next piece that we're adding to our website. If you remember, we rolled out that new website. I was going to say a year, but it's probably been 2 years. I lose track. I give up trying to keep track of that stuff. But remember when we bought that particular website from a company that's the largest municipal website provider in the country. And that means they've got a lot of modules that you can add that other cities have kind of tested and proven to be pretty successful with. And one of the modules has to do with agenda preparation, agenda planning, and communication of the documents that go towards, like your packet, basically. A lot of that stuff can now be automated. So Amy and Gary and Patty have been kind of digging into that a little bit for a couple months. And a couple of our staff have used it in other cities. So everybody gave it the thumbs up, and we wanted to at least kind of run it by you. We're not asking, we don't need your approval. If you have any real heartburn with it, let us know, but hopefully you won't. Everybody from the staff side is pretty excited about it. We think it'll streamline things and actually improve our transparency a little bit too. So Amy?
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so if you can just take a look at your agenda packet, the memo dated March 21st, I outlined some of the benefits of using Civic Clerk, and I'll just kind of go over like a high level view of what it is. So the goal to using this part of the system is to streamline how business is done before and after council meetings, and hopefully perhaps eventually even during council meetings. So like Dave had mentioned, we began looking at the system last year and we decided to wait. The timing was a little off due to, we had a lot going on last year because of the pandemic. So this year they actually approached us with a little better pricing, but not only that, they offered more usability. So not only will it be used by me as the clerk of council, city council, the administration can use it, all the department heads, but also all of our boards and commissions, which is really cool. So Planning Commission, BZA, Park, Health, they can all use this system. So it'll be a nice streamlined kind of cohesive look to all of our agendas and all of our minutes. So like I mentioned, we'll streamline our agenda preparation and item submission. So department heads will be able to submit future items by deadlines that we can establish in advance. And everyone, it will increase our transparency. So you will be able, council members and city administration will be able to view what's coming up and what's pending in a portal, which all can see. So also documents that will be discussed on the agenda will be attached and uploaded into the system. So the really cool thing that I'm looking forward to, it will cut down on the emails that we do. You have no idea, like the agenda preparation that we do prior to getting that agenda published. So it'll cut down on the emails. It'll improve communication between all of us. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. Just a side note, members who still wish to receive paper packets of the information can. So that will not immediately change, but you will have access to this portal from anywhere at any time. So we're hoping that we will all get used to using that. So again, like you can see in your packet, we'll be using this to review and approve and publish the agenda. Currently, I manually create all those documents, and it's very time consuming and kind of antiquated. So this system will set up templates one time for use every time. So we'll just set it up one time and we can tweak it from time to time, but it will provide a more polished and professional look to all of our documents. Another key feature is during the meeting, we can add speakers. So hopefully when we're back in person, we can add speakers into the meeting and run a timer for them so we can keep them in line. And then we can also capture motions, votes, and discussions during the meeting. So then it'll be put into the system and then after the meeting imported into the minutes. So it'll be a nice streamlined procedure. So like I mentioned a million times, it's streamlining the agenda planning. It'll cut down any confusion, increase transparency. Citizens will have a portal that they can subscribe to, and they'll also be able to search for items that they're interested in. So I'm looking forward to it. It will definitely help move the city of Kent forward using this technology. And I can try to answer any questions that you might have about it.
Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Gwen,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, so Amy, under the citizens section of it, is this, you said you can put, other documents and things like that. Is there any plan to put, like, when we receive letters from residents, like on particular issues, like if a topic is on the agenda, or is that something that, I guess it becomes public record, right? When you write a letter to the city, is that something that would be accessible to residents from this, or accessible to us, I guess, from this?
Yeah.
So are you asking if they would be able to write a comment through the portal?
I guess I'm asking if other residents would have the ability to view letters written by residents about particular topics as it pertains to the agenda. Like this, like the way that we report now, like the received items, and then we get it in our packet.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, Patty, do you remember them saying anything about that? That's definitely something we can jot down and look into if you're interested in that.
That
So-
didn't come up, but we can attach
Right.
the memos. So I'm sure we would be able to attach any letters as well.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious because sometimes residents want to weigh in, or they kind of, I don't know, maybe they want to see how their neighbors weighed in. I don't know. I guess I was just curious, since it's public record anyway, if it was included.
Something we can definitely look into for sure.
Thanks.
Roger?
Well, yeah, it's funny Gwen brought that up because I was going to bring up the citizens, what could they access and what couldn't they access? And it would seem to me that, we talk transparency, and I think part of that should be if we get any kind of letters written, or if we get, or even, in some ways, even anything that we the administration working with Amy, that we would like to have out there on that citizens portal. I think that's important. I think citizens I think they really would like to be able to see what their fellow citizens are thinking, other than sitting at the McDonald's and complaining to one another. Put it in writing, and then it might stimulate some conversation amongst them.
I like that idea.
Okay, Mr. Kuhar.
Yeah, I actually have a question. So when we put this into effect, I would assume, and maybe I shouldn't, that the information that's in there is from day one forward, and people could not, like research past information. Or are you putting past information in there?
No, it would be from moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question.
All right, Tracy?
Yeah, I want to say I'm all for citizens interaction, but this is supposed to be a working platform, correct? Because we already have a Facebook page for the city where people can interact with each other that way. I mean, I'd hate to have this dominated by comments by residents just talking back and forth, kind of like a Facebook page. This is not a Facebook page, right? This is more of a working thing that we're going to use for the city.
Correct.
And then anything
we
official
have
will be on it.
Correct. And we have total control on how we want it to be set up. So we can kind of customize it to the different features, and what every, group will have a certain level of security. So, the public wouldn't necessarily see as much as the clerk would, but they would still have access to all of the information.
Right. So they have access to it. They just can't manipulate it or anything.
Correct. Yes.
Any other questions?
Oh, yeah, I have another one.
Go ahead, Tracy.
We can afford it, right?
Yeah. Dave made sure of that.
Okay.
Is there a cost to it? And what is it?
It's roughly about, there was a contract that was drawn up, and they tied it into the website, the current website contract. So it was like an add-on to that current contract. So I want to say it's in the future, like the first year, there's some startup costs as far as implementing and training, but then I think it's like 5,000 roughly after that.
It's about 7,300 the first year and 4,500 per year moving forward. But to get the expiration of first contract with the Civic Plus with the website, to get both of them to be in the same time frame, we're doing a 3-year contract. So we got a discount for saying we're going to do 3 years up front.
Yeah, it'd probably be good to see that itemized out. Are there any more questions? If not, we'll move on with the idea we refer.
I think Rhonda had a comment she wanted to make.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Mayor.
No, that's fine. I didn't see your yellow light come on.
That's okay. I just wanted to tell you that it's in the amended budget amendment. It's included in there this evening, and I can point it out. It's 16,500 in the 301 fund.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
You.
All right, if there's nothing else, we received the staff report. We're going to move forward for the minutes. That's it for committee of the whole. We'll move on to community development. Mr. Kuhar.
Yeah, I believe Heather is going to let us know how great Main Street Kent did this year through the COVID.
Super. Is that the extent of the introduction?
Sure.
My turn. Okay. So do I have share screen capability, Amy?
You should. Amy.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, you do. Sorry.
Okay. It's not really what I was hoping for. Let's see. Share. Does that look like we're in business?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share our year in review from 2020. It's definitely been a challenging year, but it's also posed a lot of opportunities for us to rise to the occasion, support our community, and of course, most importantly, our downtown businesses. In February, we had our chocolate walk. And so having 200 people walk around, gathering chocolates, shopping, and having lunch went off without a hitch. We had no idea that would be our biggest fundraiser of the year, bringing in a whopping $7,000 to our organization. Our first ever Rainbow Weekend happened in March. So we had lots of entertainment, arts and activities, a couple of educational components. We had a bar crawl, and those proceeds went to the Kent State University LGBTQ+ Emergency Fund. Lots of businesses decorated their storefronts. We had a story time, some drag bingo, some drag brunch, some art displays in different businesses, even got to paint the crosswalk like a big rainbow. So it was a great opportunity to showcase Kent as a very welcoming and inclusive community. So no idea did we have that within a week or two, the whole country would shut down and none of these businesses would even be able to open their doors. So we quickly sat still for about 5 minutes, redid our budget and made a plan B for the year. So we had to start over, just like everybody else. We started with the Glad to See You campaign. Once people were able to do business in any way, we were showcasing those ways. So everybody altered their business models and we were out there letting people know you can take this class online, you can call an order and pull up and they'll bring it to your car. They've got safety measures in place and really showing pictures of that so people would feel comfortable supporting these businesses that needed them more desperately than ever. Next, we worked on the Locals Love Local campaign. Anybody that went into our businesses, 2 retailers and 2 establishments, didn't even have to spend money, just went to 4 places. They got a Locals Love Local coffee mug, and we really shifted our focus super hyper local. There was no point in marketing to outside of our community. We really needed our community to step up to the plate and support our businesses. So then that transitioned into the next phase, which was the Locals Shop Local campaign. All businesses were given that opportunity to participate. So those that did were given $5 gift cards that they could hand out to their customers after they spent 20 bucks. And hopefully they would go on to another business and spend that $5 and another chunk of change as well. So those were a couple of efforts that we did right off the bat. When spring came around, our tulips came up, thank goodness, and we put some positive messaging signs in those flower beds, just trying to encourage people to wander and explore and enjoy the outdoors. Our Adopt a Spot funding was cut partially, so we had to kind of change our plans there a little bit, but fortunately, a lot of our volunteers are family members or coworkers, so they were comfortable still moving forward with planting the beds. So we also had a GoFundMe campaign. So none of our small businesses had to pay their $250 sponsorship. So the community paid for the flowers last year, which was really a nice thing to be able to tell our businesses. Dan Smith Park quickly became favorite stomping grounds to a lot of people on the planet, thanks to people being cooped up and needing to get out somewhere. So a lot of litter, a little bit of graffiti, definitely needed some immediate action. So we put a volunteer program into place and we had one person every day, 7 days a week through the whole season, picking up litter, taking pictures of maintenance issues so that we could get those onto Collegetown Kent and get those handled as quickly as possible. And we have 7 more people signed up to work on the park already this year, and they started in March and it's off to a great start. Soon thereafter, we were approached by a local artist, Jerica Damask. She wanted to do a spirit lifting public art project focused on better days in Kent. And we knew something short-term and temporary would be able to be done quickly. So we coordinated with her. We used some space over by the mill and had kind of a color by number, bring your own brush event on a Saturday afternoon. Even had the mayor there. And we all colored in spots of that and just created kind of a nice piece. And it's still standing. It's not in the best shape. It's weathered the winter, but it's still over by Scribbles right now. The DORA program has been a fantastic hit for the entire business community as well as our people. I have not really even heard any complaints, which I guess I'll knock on wood for. It's helped our businesses keep their doors open, just giving people beers and letting them go out and enjoy them in the fresh open air. This is an idea we talked about for about a year before COVID, and nobody was really that excited about it from the business end. But once we had a pandemic, it was like, whatever you can do to get us to make a little more money, we'll do it. So, that was, we were glad to see that get passed through so quickly. 96,000 cups, we've got over 20,000 left. We're looking to order more cups, bigger volume, that's the demand. But it's given the community an opportunity to be social again, and I think it's been really successful. If you look at the roster of Ohio communities that have a DORA program, it's doubled in the past year. So the city responded with by implementing a picnic area on Franklin Avenue with the tables that were bought with some CARES Act money. And we supported that by creating some signage on easel boards and on the picnic tables, telling people, keep your mask on unless you're consuming, keep your tables clean, clean up after yourself. I mean, sadly, these are things we still have to say. So I think it helped community get out a little bit, and these businesses with the third of the capacity ability to serve, I think it really has helped them stay afloat. We also worked with some folks, contractors, to handle the trash because it definitely people's carry out and things created a lot of trash, but we got that under control pretty quickly. In July, nobody was in any mood to cancel anything else. So Wizardly World of Kent just became something else. It was the Wizardly Week. We had a lot of restriction, but we did everything we possibly could. We had a sorcery stone search with these hand painted rocks in business windows. People could post those on social and enter to win prizes. There were special menu themes, buttery beverages and things all week long. Some photo ops, lots of decorations in Acorn Alley and Dan Smith Park. We had a virtual 5K, so we were able to bring in about $5,000 to Main Street, which, I mean, we lost Art and Wine, which is usually about a 40,000 plus day for us. We lost Oktoberfest, it's another 40,000 plus day. So all these little $1, $2, $3, $5,000 things that we've been able to do have really kind of helped bridge that gap. We also projected on the side of the mill, Keep the Magic Alive with a little lightning bolt, just to try to really help lift the community spirits. And a lot of businesses were having just absolutely flat sales in July. And we got a lot of response that at least there was an uptick for the week, just got people moving again. So, so there's that. So here we have, excuse me, the back of the Hall Green Agency building on DePeyster, which you see from North Water Street, used to be the world's largest business card. And Mike Finley on our board decided it was time to clean up the act there and do something a little more interesting and appealing to the eye. So we've worked with Kelly Dietrich from Trappist Projects and Each and Every on a 3-phase project on the back of the building. So the bottom right picture is phase 1 that has been completed. Kelly's been distributing these grow kits, which is the picture above that. And they're just little packets that people can take and kind of construct what they would like a flower to look like, and then submitting those ideas to her, so that the next phase will be some more like community ideas for what those flowers could be. And then the third and final phase will be implemented in the fall. Heritage Ohio's annual conference went virtual. So all those learning opportunities and awards and things were nowhere near as fun as they have been in years past, but we nominated Mike Lewis from Hometown Bank, who's been our board treasurer for 6 years and just recently rotated off actually onto our board of governors. He was selected out of the entire state as our volunteer of the year. So super proud of that. Mike's had just a great ability to vision big picture for Main Street Kent, has no problem with digging in the soil and planting tulip bulbs, but also really helped us establish some financial security for the organization, which this past year has proven to be super important. Halloween came around, and instead of a gathering of costume contests and crazy trick-or-treaters, we thought we would do a story walk again. So Dave Pilkey, who went to Kent State, had a story, The Halloweener, about a wiener dog. And so we installed that in business windows and just encouraged the community to get out and read and frequent our businesses. And fortunately, we were able to help Rough Riders read program raise some money and help support their literacy efforts as well. The Historic Facades of Kent was an internship project that took a couple of years to complete, but Mark Pruce was a student at the College of Architecture and Environmental Design, and he documented the original structures and purposes of all these buildings in the downtown district. And it's amazing. It took a lot of time, but he did a great job on it. And so Tom Hatch, who's a publisher by trade, volunteered his time to go through the process of actually turning this into a book, which was completely impressive. So we got this underwritten entirely. And so the proceeds are benefiting both Main Street Kent and the Historical Society. And it's really meant to be a tool to help building and business owners either restore facades to their original way, or at least just try to help to just keep the integrity of the original structures alive whenever it's possible. Keep the character. So around Thanksgiving, I mean, all the time, but the folks at Kent State were continually reaching out. I think they have some great new leadership there when it comes to partnering with us and downtown in general. So they wanted to come up with a way to support our downtown businesses, seeing a couple of them closed down. What can we do to help? So they came up with this Blue, Gold, and Grateful gift certificate program. So all employees, faculty, staff received a $20 gift certificate to spend at any participating business. And again, we offered this opportunity to every single downtown business, and about 30 of them took us up on it. The city also followed suit, offering a $25 gift certificate to all the employees at the city. So timing is everything here. Let's see, the Kent State program put over $32,000 into downtown spending in that month, 6-week period. And the city program added another $5,000 to that. So what a fantastic boost that brought to our businesses, just to kind of launch them into the holidays and help them through this ridiculous year. So some businesses got $20 and some got $3,000. It was just amazing. Some even people that didn't want to spend, they were given an option to donate to a nonprofit like Main Street or the Chamber or the Kent Stage. So there were a few $1,000s that went in that direction too. So it was really, really good program. Holidays were approaching. People are dying for some live music, and it's really been tough. It's really been tough on everybody not being able to have live music. So we came up with an idea to put 16 musicians and bands to the task of just recording themselves performing one of their holiday favorite tunes, sending it into us or Roger Hoover. He created a compilation that was like a little digital concert for us. And then people could buy a ticket just by making a minimum $20 donation. And then they had a link to that from Thanksgiving through the New Year. And we were able to write a check to Kent Social Services for $2,021. And again, bring in a couple $1,000 for Main Street Kent as well. So that was something new and fun. So things were getting really bad at this point. I remember we were like, okay, what's everybody doing? Like the Chamber and the city and Parks and Rec and College Town and Acorn Alley. We actually got together in the police station's meeting room and like just tried to figure out like, what are we all doing and how do we help each other promote what we're doing? So the Chamber took the lead in doing a Adopt a Snowman program. So flower beds were filled with a bunch of creatively decorated snow people. We did an Elf Hits Downtown Kent program where people could search for the elves while shopping and enter to win prizes. The city did the free parking for months, actually, like from this period on. The city did these big banners downtown so people could take selfies and people just decorated and like, I think really made the best of where we were for the holidays. So we did our window decorating contest and Empire came in blazing again. They always have such a beautiful window and it's nice to be able to provide some funds to them for that as well. One of our board members is friends with some folks at Sibling Revelry Brewing, and a couple of those guys are Kent State alum. And so they had this idea of, oh, let's create Main Street Kent's own private label beer. So I was like, sure, we can sell 400 6-packs of beer. So we ordered our 100 cases of beer and sold them online and had pickup days at Water Street Tavern. And just brought it out to people on the sidewalk. They came in to get it. We didn't quite sell out. We just sold some leftovers at 101, but again, another little fundraiser to just help bring in some funds for Main Street and give people an opportunity to kind of bid farewell to the year. Good riddance. Our friends at Main Street Kent has been super strong. So it's very encouraging to see that people just really do understand and value the work that we do. We've had some new people come on board to support. We've had people give more. People kind of put us on hold for a little bit with the full commitment to be back as soon as things get back to more normal for them. So we've had a lot of really good support. So these are all the people that give from 500 to 70,000 if you look at the contract with the city. And then we have another 150 people on there that are community members and families and small businesses that contribute as well. Our volunteers have been amazing this year. They've really, I mean, how many Zooms can you take? Here we all are. They've been there for committee meetings, board meetings, subcommittee meetings, projects. Like it's amazing that everybody's really been hanging in there. So we've tallied 1,400 hours of support, which is, you know, the equivalent of over $36,000, which it can't even be, it's gotta be way more than that, but it's a guess. We just, our board especially, and Leslie and I, staff, are super appreciative of the continued support. As you know, that like this year was super tough financially. This was not going to be a good year to cut us back in any way. I mean, we really tightened up our strings and did everything we could to come out on top, and we did, and we will. We've got a pretty conservative budget to get us through this year, not planning on any big events. And if we get to do something in the fall, then great. But, you know, as we look forward to the year, it's really, we just are going slow and steady. We have to take the advice of city staff and the governor and make plans when it's safe and sensible to do so. So we're still really focused on getting people out and about, getting them up and moving. We have a Putt Around Downtown event, which is almost sold out next weekend. We have another story walk in the works for May. In June, we're going to do a MSK 5K pending approval from Joan, which has already been submitted. We're doing some public art walking tours that are all, you just go on the website and follow along, and we have like 2 or 3 more different outdoor walking tours in the works, and just getting people moving and you know, supporting the businesses in every way they can. We've really had to table some of our art projects as well. So we're hoping to do a couple of things. One's a 3D art project, which we've applied for a grant for, and hopefully we'll know this summer whether we'll be able to move forward with that. And then installing those lights on Burbick Way that we've wanted to do. We want to bring that back. And then continue to work our partnership with Kent State, really working on win-win opportunities to support each other. I really feel like there's a legitimate commitment from the folks that we've been working with over there this past year. So I think that about wraps it up. I would be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Heidi?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Heather. Oh my gosh. You know, even though you had a difficult year, it was a full year. I just wanted to ask about the Kent Rainbow Weekend, and it seemed like it just sort of zoomed by this year. Was that intended, or could it become an annual event? Because you said it was the first annual event.
It was our first, so in 2020, that was our first year. There was no way in the world we were going to pull that off this year. So there were a handful of people that contacted us and said, are you going to do something? And hopefully we can just pick up where we left off and do it again next year. And I think, you know, timing is of question, but there's definitely the support. We had a lot of really great partners that helped us put that whole thing together. And I feel, so it wasn't brushed over. It was just not, we were not in any position to put the whole thing together. There was a lot of gathering for that.
Yeah, I understand that.
No crawls and all that good stuff.
Right. But I really appreciated that new event, and I think that just adds to our ability to say that we're an inclusive community. Mhm.
Yeah.
You have something? Mike?
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna make one comment about the facades of Kent. I picked that book up and I didn't put it down until I was done with it.
Yes.
And it was so interesting. Maybe I should have been an architect. But it was a good book and I did really enjoy that.
Awesome.
Roger?
You know, Heather, I heard on NPR not too long ago about the nonprofit organizations trying to get their people back. As the Main Street organization, are they providing our local Main Street organization with some thoughts about how we might get people back, get people, willing to volunteer, those type of things following the pandemic?
I would assume so, because there are a million opportunities to learn and participate, virtually for all these things. I can't see that being a problem for us. Like people are like, what can we do? What can we do? I'm like, hold on, we're coming up with something. We're gonna have a cleanup day. Like, they're chomping at the bit. They want to help. So fortunately, we have Adopt a Spot coming up, and so we can get 35 groups together to plant flowers, and hopefully another cleanup day really soon, and all the things. So I'm sure there is support and programming out there for that, but.
Well, I'm optimistic like you are that everyone's going to just come racing back. But
Yeah.
I found it odd when I was listening to that conversation on, and I was concerned because Rotary also is facing those issues, and I'm sure the chamber is facing those issues. Are we going to get people back because they've been away for a while?
Right. And I think we have such a wide variety, like a vast array. The demographic of people that help us are like from high school to completely retired and chilling and looking for something to do. So, and I think as people's comfort level, changes as things progress, hopefully over the next few months, then, even more people will be coming out of the woodwork. But I think the need and the willingness will grow back together. It'll change together.
Thank you.
Any other? Well, thank you, Heather, for your time and your very good report. And we'll see you next time.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather.
Heather.
I'm not
Thanks,
leaving.
Heather.
Yeah.
Land Use Committee, Mr. Ferrer, I see you're here.
Yes. Hi. Sorry I was late. I'll call to order the Land Use Committee, and we've got the proposed zoning code updates. And I think Bridget's going to keep us entertained with that.
Thank you. A couple items I'd like to start with is one, I'm going to be referencing my notes a lot. So if you'd like to ask a question, please, Garrett, call out. So if I'm looking down, I miss it. It's going to be an extensive review. I'm going to apologize ahead of time for this long review, but it was 220 pages. So there is a lot that I'm trying to summarize. The first thing, though, I want to put out there is that this truly was a group effort. Credit goes to Jen Barone, Heather, Eric Fink, and working with me. The four of us did this together. We did have a consultant. We did hire a consultant, but we learned very quickly that a consultant from out of town doesn't know our community and hasn't lived through some of the challenges as we did with our growth. So we think the consultant did a great job with helping us with the formatting and assisting with some guidance. But overall, this is, as I said to Dave, our prior zoning code was aspirational. This is practical. This code reflects a document that can be used by developers, by residents, and by staff. So I'm going to go forward and give a brief summary of the overall changes for the code as well as each chapter. And please, as I go along, interrupt me as needed. As I mentioned in my memo, we did have 12 work sessions for the zoning code update. Normally work sessions are not advertised, but we did advertise and promote the public to attend in order to get input and insight. I will say we did not have a lot of attendance at our work sessions, but we did make sure that opportunity was out there. The result of those 12 work sessions was meeting with Planning Commission, reviewing what staff and the consultant had worked on with regards to changes, taking the Planning Commission's comments and then bringing them back and then working on them again internally and then taking them back. So while I know many were interested in how we were progressing, it was a slow and methodical process. Throw in there, we did have a delay in some transitions in staff at the beginning with our consultant. We actually lost 3 of the primary planning consultants that we were assigned in the beginning. And then we had the pandemic. So that did add 6 to 8 months to this process, but we're happy to say that we got through it and we're here with us tonight. So the code itself has been rewritten except for the appendix. So the design guidelines, which is the tool used by the Architectural Review Board, was not part of this update. And I want to make sure that that was noted. Design guidelines are a separate project in and of itself because they are extensive and need reviewed. So our plan is to actually, once our budget stabilizes, is to go out to an RFQ and hire a consultant to work with us on that. And hopefully that can occur in the next year or 2. So I'm going to just go over some overall changes to the code. For those of you that took the time to look at the 220 pages of the new and compare it to the old, you will notice that it looks different in every way. From the table of contents all the way through to the way the text is laid. Our prior zoning code, lack of a better word, cobbled together. While there was an extensive update in 2011, much of that was tweaking or taking language from another community, anticipating that would work in our community. Unfortunately, we found that many of those updates actually did not translate well into a college town because of the transient nature of student housing and because of the unprecedented development and growth we had between 2012 and 2016. So this code does include hyperlinks. I will let you know that the version you have has some shown as error, but as of today, Kim Brown, the administrative assistant, went through and has adjusted for all formatting changes and verified all hyperlinks. So some of those matters addressed, and so that final version is what will be uploaded and part of the legislation once this is approved. We also used an extensive amount of images, tables. The zoning code in its prior format was primarily text. Using narrative to, for example, a setback is a little challenging when you're dealing with large projects. So what we did is we took a lot of that information and put it into formats that could be easily looked at in a chart and table and then referenced to text. So for chapter 1101, the updated language was more just succinct and to clarify. We do have Eric Fink on the call as well, who as the assistant law director works with our department closely and was part of all the language changes as well. Then the next chapter that we are dealing with is chapter 1102. So this chapter had been before you several times. We had made numerous amendments to it in order to clarify language, removing antiquated language, and to deal with some legalities that actually had come up with some of the court cases that we had dealt with. So those are all in there because we did find those definitions to work for us. But we also did do some improvements with regards to using bullets and lists. A lot of those definitions were just straight paragraph narrative. We would actually get confused by the end of it. So if we staff are confused, we knew that the public that was using it would be as well. We also used figures for areas where the public had often had confusion. Buildable lot. Those of us that work in the community development understand side setbacks and what those various aspects of a buildable lot mean. But depicting it in an image will make it so much easier for anyone that's new to the development or even new to development.
Oh, boy.
I'll reach out to her.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's one way not to have to go through 200 pages of zoning code.
So,
Yeah, go ahead, Tracy.
when did the council meeting start? My packet said 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
6:55, there was a board of control but I got on at 7:05 and it was already in motion, so.
Yeah.
6:55 is board of control. Following that, at 7 o'clock, the committee meeting starts.
Right.
That's what we did.
Yeah, because I got on about 2 minutes early and seemed like you guys have been going at it for about 10 minutes already.
I think you probably got the tail end of the board of control, maybe.
Oh, maybe.
She's trying to re-enter the meeting.
Trying to find the zoning code online. Having trouble.
I hope you're ready, Eric, to step in and
Eric, or Bridget talks so fast that she broke the sound barrier, and we're waiting for her to come back down now.
we have to get it in by 10 o'clock to meet the sunshine rule. John.
Yes. I didn't hear the boom though.
Oh, here she is.
They didn't really write a zoning code, so they're just using these technical difficulties to
There.
Okay, I'm hopefully you can hear me.
last chapter. Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. I apologize. I have no idea what happened. I cannot wait till we have in-person meetings again.
I think, Bridget, I think before you went off, you were right at, and so to summarize.
Okay, do you know what chapter you were the last thing you had heard? I'll end with 1113. That's the last chapter. I will try to go quick because gosh knows if my internet's going to cut out again. So chapter 1103, which is our zoning district land use section. Very quickly, that is where the specifications for actual uses and setbacks and requirements per zoning district are listed. Again, we used to have that in narrative, and now they are in tables. Tables has a quick reference in the beginning where someone could go in and look for a use, find it if it's conditionally permitted or permitted, and then know exactly which district to look at for those requirements. So that type of cross is much easier because before, for example, with I just got a message that says your internet is unstable. So Eric, do you have my case I cut out? Then you have to take over.
I'll do the best I can.
Okay.
if you turn off video, sometimes if you turn off video,
okay, I'll do that.
Helps.
I'll do that. There you go. So chapter 1104 is the zoning district standards and overlay districts. So this is the overlay district. The West River overlay district is the same. This is the district that covers the certificate of appropriateness that the Architectural Review Board issues. The map is the same, but we did get clearer boundaries to delineate the area better because the map that was in the existing zoning code was very challenging to identify where the boundaries were. In this chapter, we also have what was the preservation alternate. We did include the preservation alternate again, which basically offers an alternative for more of a multi-residential unit development, but we did make it much easier to use. So the whole goal of the preservation alternate was to create environments for alternative types of housing. But for an example, it required a minimum of 10 acres. acres. It's extremely difficult to find 10 acres in Kent. So we reduced the requirement to 2 acres. We also allow for the prior preservation alternate did not allow for attached housing. We do allow for that in this. So in other words, it'll allow a developer that's looking to create something new and different in either infill housing or in a smaller area, the opportunity to come up with something creative and present it to Planning Commission. Chapter 1105, which is our conditions chapter, also had substantive changes. So our conditions before was just a list of 58. And you would find a use in one chapter, go flip back and forth to see what those uses meant. And many of those conditions were actually very challenging for even us to understand. So we spent a great deal of time on this. We removed conditions that actually were difficult to apply or didn't even seem to align with the purpose of the conditions. And then we also included a section now that is called potential concerns. One of the things with a condition is it requires certain conditions be met, but sometimes there are areas of concern that the Planning Commission should be made aware of, that if they want to add an additional condition, they would have that ability to do. So what we did is, over the time that we have been working on this, we have experiences where maybe noise is a factor, for example, for a board for Starbucks, but that noise is not a factor for an indoor seating location. So all we did was list those areas like, in this type of use, conditional use, is this a potential concern that the Planning Commission should be paying attention to? And if not, it's not a formalized condition that forces a developer to comply with if it isn't something that even affects their project. In chapter 1106, this is just our general provisions. This is kind of the housekeeping work that we use. We look at the regulations that deal with substandard lots, line of sight, pools, fences are in this chapter, accessory buildings. We organized it into a more user-friendly fashion, included lots of figures and images because we do have some confusion on this. And I do have one note that is not in the draft copy that Eric and I worked on today. Since we sent this out, we actually had an issue with the health department where somebody used a tarp as a fence. We have language that we are adding that basically allows, that will just be adding a few sentences that basically states that determining what is classified as a fence is up to the discretion of the Community Development Department. We don't want to say a certain material because, for example, snow fencing or silt fence, those are something that is made out of similar material as a tarp. So we wouldn't want to prohibit that. So we're going to do this just so that if we do have somebody that a party is trying to set up a backyard living room, we can address that concern. And then for chapter 1107, we didn't make a ton of changes with that. That's parking, loading, and access, but we did organize it better and included many diagrams to explain how things can be laid out and how we anticipate a site should flow. We did, for the first time, however, include allowing for compact cars. Now, we do have requirements in there that those compact cars have to be figured in a certain area on a park lane and different things like that, but we do allow for it for the first time. And I should have mentioned in 1106, those general provisions, we also include solar and wind energy system regulations for the first time. We used a model that the consultant provided with us. We actually have not had a lot of this. There are solar panels and they've been mounted on a roof and actually would meet these requirements. We wanted to make it a supportive legislation, not an onerous one.
Yes, Tracy, go ahead. You have a question?
Yeah, with the parking, I was just curious with the compact cars, like there's a lot of, I have a smart car and there's a lot of spots around the city that would handle a smart car that now are not allowed for any cars. Did you think about that when you were doing the parking at all?
You don't allow for any parking? I'm not quite understanding. Are you talking on street or in a parking lot?
Yeah, on street and in a parking lot. There's like little spaces that a smart car could fit in, so that they wouldn't have to take up a regular size space. Is that a possibility with parking?
It would be. So this is for on-site parking. These parking regulations, they would not regulate on-street, but that is basically to allow for those types of smaller vehicles. So in an area where normally we would not put a spot, you could actually allow the last 2 spots, for example, to be for a smaller vehicle. You may see them in a parking deck, so we will be incorporating that, and it allows for that. Normally a parking spot is established at 9 by 18, but we now can allow for smaller for those types of cars like yours.
Okay, thanks.
Chapter oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, good. You have something else, Tracy? No, okay. You mentioned that there are regulations now for the first time for solar and wind. Having just get back in town, I didn't get a chance to read your 200 pages, but could you tell me if there are provisions for freestanding solar racks?
Yes, so there's what they're called in the code, actually ground mounted and roof mounted. So for the solar panels, the ground mounted do have requirements with regards to maximum height limit. I believe it's 10 feet. I would have to look back at the specific code. So it does differentiate between the two. Currently, I believe there are 2 residential structures that have roof mounted panels. We haven't seen any ground mounted, but we do have regulations now that would govern that.
I know where I've seen a lot of the electrical solar panels, they've been mounted on like pole mounted with almost a billboard type display background appearance. So those would not be allowed then?
No, I can find that specific section. It is in 1106, but it does, I'm fairly certain that the limit from basically grade to the top is 10 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So that if they were mounted, it would not exceed that height.
Okay.
Heidi, a question?
Yes, did I miss something? I mean, I'd really like to be able to read the 200 pages, or at least look at some of these, because if we approve these, we're approving, it sounds to me, we're approving some new regulations. And I don't know that I'm terribly comfortable with
I emailed the document out a week ago Monday with the memo as a separate email to all of council.
email.
You want to go ahead and go ahead. Keep going, Bridget.
Okay, so the landscaping.
For solar energy panels, the ground mounted solar systems are limited to 10 feet. Your memory was correct on that. That is exactly the number we have in our code, proposed code.
Thanks, Eric. So the landscape buffering and screening, we actually for the first time incorporated a landscape buffering and screening chapter in 2013. It was our first attempt and it was modeled after in other communities. We ourselves found the charts and the information there to be confusing. So we did update this. It actually adds more landscaping requirements and makes it more clear as to how the number of trees, the number of bushes need to be applied for a site plan. And then to ensure that what was written actually could be applied in the field, we actually paid a Kent State University landscape architect to go through that section of that chapter and look at it for us and advise us if there was any issues or concerns. So that was vetted by him. And actually, I think he only made one minor change. So we incorporated that in the draft of the landscape chapter. The chapter 1109, which is signs, we used extensive images here. The signs actually have created a great deal of confusion on how square feet is calculated. So we used a lot of that for odd shaped signs and included that in them. And we also, while we didn't add a lot of new definitions in the sign section, we organized it in a way where the signs are defined, the rules follow, and then we grouped together prohibited signs, which were also something that we had not consolidated or organized in the prior code. And we also updated the political sign language can speak to because there was some case law related to that. So the section on political signs now reflects the current law. Eric, if you wanted to speak to anything on that.
Just their court case law has made it clear that Political speech cannot be regulated as far as the content, obviously, but that was also then extended that limiting the timing of speech to just around the election itself, maybe too limiting, as some political issues are debated not necessarily at the same time as the primary or the general election. And so regulations have to go more towards the type of sign, a sign though that may look raggedy after being out for 30 days. So you might regulate how long a sign can be out, but not necessarily exactly what months that sign can be out. If you keep changing your sign every 30 days and have a fresh sign out all the time, it would have different political messages you want delivered. You have the right to do that is basically the takeaway from these Supreme Court cases. So we try to write a code that would reflect the current case law.
Thank you, Eric. I did want to mention too, in the prohibited signs, we've had some challenges in the past regarding sheets used as signs. So we did clarify in prohibited signs that signs that are made out of bed linens, tarps, or plywood would be prohibited signs. We also are prohibiting the feather signs, which have taken on a life of their own and are out stuck in lawns in front of many businesses, and we get significant complaints about those. But we actually had not had those feather signs identified by definition or by as being a prohibited sign because they're fairly new. So those have been added to the sign chapter. Chapter 1110 deals with nonconformity. So a nonconformity, for just those of you that are not familiar with that in the zoning, it is a condition that is created once a zoning code has been adopted. So it's a nonconforming use. For example, it was a conforming use, but then there was a change at some point to a zoning district, and that use was eliminated or the parcel size changed by the requirements of the new zoning code. So that's what we're referring to with non-conforming. This section was organized by Eric, so I can let Eric speak to this if anyone had specific questions. But what we did was just clarify the language and categorize where those non apply, which is typically to a use, a structure, and a lot. I will say a recent question came up from the county auditor regarding basically the creation of a non-conforming lot. So she was calling to find out why a parcel split would not be authorized for a certain site. And I explained to her that it was presented as one project, and to do that would create two non-conforming into non-conforming lots. So we would never initiate that. Now, those limits on that are actually part of our land use individual chapters, but it's implicit in our application of the zoning. It's not explicitly stated. So Eric actually took some time today to script out some language that basically specifically says that we will not do an action that creates or expands a non-conforming use or a substandard lot. So we're just going to put that in a section so we can point to it. So somebody could say, well, it's already in our code implicitly in our practice, but we also have it stated in this section. So that is going to be added to the 1110.07. 1112 or 1111 is the administrative.
Hang on one second, Bridget. John,
sure.
you are at a question.
Yeah, I guess I sneak it in on non-conforming, but I'm going back to, the limitations you put on the mounting of the solar panels and that. And I probably would like to bring it up at a different time, because what you're saying with the ground mounted solar panels, it's a very inefficient use of the land square footage, where there are better usages that could produce more electricity and take up less space. But it's hard to talk about it on Zoom without some props or pictures or anything else, because I'd like to show you what they're doing in Canada and a lot of other states for the solar electric that's not taking up a whole yard to get 10 kW or something. But I guess what I'm saying is, if you're locking this into the code, is there room to allow that at a later date if council approves it?
Absolutely, John. We've amended the code numerous times, as you know. I've been before you amending various chapters, sections, and we anticipate that will continue. A zoning code is never a static document. what is adopted and then put into practice when we find operationally something's not working or there's been changes. I mean, we've never had solar or wind governed in the zoning code. So we were guided by what other communities had done as presented to us by the consultant. But we might find that that applicability doesn't work for us and we will need to change that or expand it or add to it. Well, there's never been, in fact, we joke that once this is adopted, we'll probably be back in 2 months with a change, because this is an extensive document with multiple applications and ramifications. So oftentimes the zoning code is brought to Planning Commission for recommendation for an amendment to council. And we anticipate that process will continue. So absolutely.
Yeah, because the ground mounts are definitely, in most cases, very inefficient as far as, you know, how much land you have to use up and what you get out of it. But until I can get something else to show you, we'll have to bring it up, and maybe by that time we'll be live.
We also do have roof mounted allowed in there. So that is there. It's not one only. It looked on the information we provided that the two ways of mounting that were presented to us were the ground mounted and the roof mounted. So we allow for both types of use.
Well, I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about, but we'll do it at a later date.
Thank you. In chapter 1111, which is the administrative boards and commissions, again, this wasn't such with regards to significant changes, more of a structuring issue. So we had the Board of Zoning Appeals, Planning Commission, and the Architectural Review Board addressed in separate chapters in different locations with different organizing sections. Eric took the time to strategically organize all of these three boards that are part of the zoning code requirements into a consistent matter with regards to how they're structured, their responsibilities and duties. Now, of course, those all vary. The Planning Commission does site plan, the Board of Zoning Appeals does variances, and the Architectural Review Board applies the design guidelines in the overlay district, but we were able to at least establish it in a more organized manner. We also organized the site plan process. So we have two processes that we deal with in the Community Development Department, which is a major and minor plan review. And we made sure that it was clear what those thresholds were when it transferred from major to minor, and when Planning Commission review was needed or when staff review was all that was required. We also clearly delineated using a table and listing application requirements, because oftentimes for the site plan, the applications come in with some deficiencies. So this should help organize an applicant to understand what they need in order to have a complete packet. Chapter 1112 was the updated administrative procedures. Again, this was just some cleaning up of some antiquated language and some standards. And then 1113 for the violations and penalties is also just some clarifying language. For those of you that may not be aware, the zoning code enforcement is done through the civil offenses process. So it is a civil offense, and it is done through the application of issuing a warning, a 10-day period for curing that deficiency, and then a fine process steps in if it's still in place. At that point, I am going to be quiet and open up to questions.
Okay, Gwen had a question first, so go ahead, Gwen.
Yeah, thank you. I had just a question about chapters 1104 and 1111. It didn't look like there were substantive changes to it. And the reason I'm asking is because I've received several complaints from businesses and people in our arts community that the process of getting a certificate of appropriateness is very challenging, and complaints were made that it was too subjective, particularly regarding public artworks. So I was just going to ask about that process, or if it's been addressed or how it can be addressed.
Sure, thank you. So as I mentioned in the beginning, the design guidelines, the appendix to the zoning code were not part of this update. But I think a little historic context will help structure some of the comments I'm about to make. So the design guidelines were put in place through an initiative at that time, Mary Gilbert and Ron Burbick were starting a Main Street Kent with a historic focus. So those guidelines were completely drafted with the anticipation that a historic district would be established and designated in the downtown. The guidelines were adopted, and while the Architectural Review Board had always had been in place and had the authority to make recommendations to the Planning Commission on various design related matters, it was with the approval of the design guidelines and incorporation of them into the zoning code that they got that quasi judicial authority of needing to issue a certificate of appropriateness for changes to the exterior, including to any painted murals in the overlay district. So as we move forward, there was actually another initiative for historic preservation that happened in 2012. And when they went forward to try to establish a district, there were no willing property owners that wanted to establish a district. So we structured our historic preservation to be driven by the property owner only, and they come and seek a local designation as historic. Well, what happened then is we have design guidelines, which are called design guidelines, but were designed specifically to address historic preservation at a time when the downtown redevelopment was occurring, and much of the projects that were being done there were new or were not couched in a historic preservation initiative. So while addressing the design guidelines is the overall goal for staff, I will say that the application of using the design guidelines for murals, public murals and public art, as well as even we've had some challenging cases dealing with paint of actually properties themselves, including Trano and some other establishments. It may be worth having, like I said, we didn't change those chapters, we just organized them better. If this code were to be approved, staff could go back and review how we could at least look at the existing guidelines and address those concerns dealing with that public art piece. Cover that with Architectural Review Board and Planning Commission, and then come back to council with some options of how we might be able to address that matter outside of how it is currently being addressed.
So in essence, just to summarize briefly, so we're sort of applying historic guidelines, but it's not in a historic district, right?
Correct.
And this is binding. So if a business owner or a work of art doesn't get the certificate of appropriateness, they can't proceed.
That's correct. If they're located in the overlay district, that is correct.
That's right. Well, I guess what I'd like to do is kind of given how much redevelopment that there's been downtown, and we don't have a specific historic district, this seems dated to me. I think we have an eclectic downtown. And I think that this is something that I don't want to hold up voting on all of this tonight. Is it possible to is it possible for city staff to come back to us and we can make amendments specifically about some guardrails on some of these decisions?
Absolutely. There's in fact, I think Eric and I both were under the thought that this definitely would need maybe more time to discuss with council. I will say, looking at those areas that we're looking at, so I would ask that we not approve a portion of the code and leave another section out. So I think staff, Eric, you can chime in. We'd like it approved in its totality. So it would be preferred that if we could either delay approval so that we have time to then look at that matter and bring it back. Also, then, for example, Heidi, who did not have a chance to look at it, could come with more questions. Or if it is approved, that we come back, if there's a motion made to move that aspect of the design guidelines and the certificate of appropriateness and the responsibility of the ARC board in applying that, and we come back with committee with a proposed amendment to address some of those matters. So there's multiple ways to come at this.
So just to be clear, then we would approve it, but with the understanding that we would also ask for committee time to amend something we approve?
You would ask for committee time to discuss a potential amendment of ideas that staff would bring to you based on discussions we would have with Planning Commission and the Architectural Review Board. Those recommendations, I would feel that the staff would need to look at it as we did with every other section of this, identify those areas, specifically those relating to public art in the guidelines, as well as the Arc Board's response, and present that to Arc Board and Planning Commission, and then come back to you with their thoughts as well as staff's thoughts on that matter for discussion. And then it
Okay.
would be up to
So
council to
I,
decide.
so I have a question procedurally then. So, are the changes we would approve in 1104 and 1111, I think it was, as Gwen had mentioned. So if we, are they significantly different than what they currently are? And if they are, then why approve
Well,
something
right-
if we know we want to address that?
Well, that's the thing. We don't have to approve this tonight. We can actually work on that and come back to you in June or July with those plans. We worked on the zoning code. We have, what I don't want is an adoption of a part, I guess is the best way to say it. So we can absolutely, I think it actually would, and if there's other concerns that are coming up after you have a chance to look at this, we could come back with the comments and ideas that Gwen brought up, as well as any others. And we could bring those back to you and say, this is what we looked at with regards to addressing this for discussion.
Okay, so Gwen, is that clear to you? And
It is clear to me. Bridget, is it preferable to you for us to hold off and
Yeah,
revisit? Is that preferred?
Yeah, we are good with that. We have been using code that we have. And while we are thrilled to have the updates, the code we have is a workable code, and it's been a sound code. So for us to use that for a few more months while we look at this other matter and any other matters that might come up. In fact, John, if you wanted to provide that information with regards to the solar panels, we could bring that back as well as changes to it. So we can kind of address all those questions that have come up today by bringing this back. I would say, because I would want to have that discussion with Architectural Review Board and Planning Commission and for staff to go through it, it'd probably be June or July before we come back, but that's still, that'll be here before we know it.
okay, so John, you had your hand up. You had another question?
Yeah, Bridget, am I correct in understanding that no one has looked at the finished product yet?
Oh no, we've gone through the entire zoning code.
With council?
Well, we're doing this today. This is our first discussion of it today. The entire code. I sent it via email instead of including it in the communication because it was so large. I can resend it. And I provided a summary memo of those changes in each chapter. I think that some members of council did look at it. I know Roger and Jack were commenting on it beforehand. So we can more time. I don't think Eric or I anticipated an approval tonight in total anyway. This is a large document, 220 pages.
Okay.
I don't recall getting a 200-page document to review, so I'm thinking, I need to look at specifics, for specific answers, and that's why I'm kind of.
Well, you'll get it resent to you, John.
Yeah, I'll
Roger,
resend.
you had a question?
Right, I'll re-forward the email.
Yes, Garrett. So Bridget, and maybe I should direct this to Dave. So since we're in the middle of a committee hearing on this document, should we just entertain a motion to table it until everyone's had an opportunity to look at it? And if it takes a couple months of review, would that make sense? I didn't get the impression that you were going to, that this committee.
Roger, as committee chair, I would say not to table it just yet because everyone has, the email's been sent out and people have got it. If they haven't read it, then shame on them. So that shouldn't prevent us from at least having a discussion on it now. And then people can go back and read it for the first time or read it another time and then come back with questions like Bridget has suggested we'd be able to do. So let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with keep the committee time rolling. I'm suggesting though that was there, I guess I'm asking Bridget or Dave, was there an understanding that we were just going to approve it tonight to move it on to the agenda in 2 weeks, or what was
I didn't.
No, Roger.
No.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dave.
Roger, I mean, Bridget has said a lot of this, so I don't want to repeat too much of it, but we came into this not expecting approval tonight. And even in my email to you guys, I had said a separate email just about tonight's meeting. I had said, hey, we're willing to bump this into the following months. We're not expecting, I mean, if some reason you were all like, hey, it's all fine, that's good too, but we certainly were not expecting that. I would not suggest a table though, just no motion at all. Table has certain encumbrances legally, so you accept the report and we'll be back to you in a couple months.
Yeah, and I did not ask for emergency in my memo, but I do think it got included in the city manager's communication, but I think that's because it's just already in the text. But I will affirm that staff did not anticipate an approval tonight. We actually want you to take the time. This is an important document. It governs a lot of aspects of private development as well as residential development. And we would appreciate comments and review. So I'm more than happy to take the time and work through the items that were brought up tonight and any others that are forwarded to us.
Okay, thanks, Bridget. Heidi, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a chance to read it. The two sections that I was interested in because I felt they were new. I'm wondering if there's some way we can provide this to the community to read. A lot of this is kind of housekeeping and updates, and I really applaud the effort, and I did happen to notice how inviting it looked compared to the past. But something that's new that some members of the community might actually have some experience on.
Sure, it is public record and it's been out there. I will say that Kim has worked on updating the hyperlinks, and before I would put it out there on the website, which I can work with Amy or Patty to get that done, I would like to put a watermark draft on it. I do not want this to be seen in any shape or form by a developer or a resident as final and adopted code, because it is not. It is a working draft. So give me a few days to get that watermark put on there, and also to get the hyperlinks. I think it'd be helpful for people to be able to test out those hyperlinks and see how it connects them to other parts of the code. So we can absolutely make that happen and get that done in the next week. And then we'll send when that's available on the city website.
Yeah, I want to say I read it, and I think that to me as a layperson, everything seemed really good. I mean, I didn't feel that it was overly restrictive, but I don't have all the knowledge.
Sure. No, that's fine. We like I said, we had 12 work sessions. We appreciate input. So I will be more than happy to get that out there. I just would like to put that draft watermark on there. I think Eric would agree with me on that. We've had issues with people have found antiquated or replaced versions of older sections of the code and tried to say those apply to their project. And I just don't want to go down that road if possible. So I'll just put a draft and then it will be good. And that'll also give us time to work through these other items and issues, which are great, by the way.
Okay. Further questions from council? Let's go to the audience. Amy, can you open up so if there's any questions from the audience?
I don't believe we have, well, we do have a couple of audience members.
If you're going to, it's your name and address, and questions are directed to council, just as an FYI.
Doesn't seem like there are any.
Can I be an audience member?
You can right now. Yes, go right ahead.
Sure. So my name is Heather Malarczyk and I live at 7685 Westlake Boulevard. I would like to, so I have to pose this as a question to council?
I'll give you some latitude, Heather.
Okay. Just in response to the issue with ARB issuing certificates of appropriateness with regard to public art, I guess the question would be, can you please look at other opportunities to run an efficient public art program in our city, whether it involves Main Street Kent or not? I feel it's a very important continuing effort for our city. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything further from the audience? Anybody? Anyone? Or I think it was Melanie that wanted to ask a question, but maybe not. back to council. Mr. Kuhar,
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to review and continue this topic.
for a second.
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay,
Do we need to even do that? I mean, don't we just say, okay, let's keep going?
we probably could, but we've got a motion on the floor, so you're probably right.
They can rescind the motion.
You'd have to rescind it, John.
That's all right, just vote.
Hey,
Come on.
Let's go ahead and vote on it. Go ahead. Same difference.
Yeah.
All those in favor of the motion by Mr. Guar and seconded by Ms. Roseberg, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes. Thank you, Bridget. I know that's a lot of work. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate your hard work. With that, I will adjourn the Land Use Committee. Thank you.
All right, streets and sidewalks, Mr. Sidoti.
Yes, the first thing on the agenda is parking on Middlebury Road, and I see Melanie, Jim, and Hope all are going to be part of this. So who wants to start us off?
I'll go ahead and start. How's that? Does that work?
Yeah, we go to the same barbers. That's good.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe it's the same. Supposed to say. So currently there are no parking. There are no restrictions to parking on Middlebury Road, and specifically the area from the city limits to Akron Boulevard has, especially recently, some changes to it with bike lanes that were installed, the two bridges that are there, and then the curves. Due to the amount of traffic that's driving through that area, it's not practical or safe to have on-street parking permitted. So we're coming here tonight to request to make it so that there's no parking permitted on that stretch of Middlebury Road. So.
Mr. Kuhar?
Jim, I don't know if anymore, but they used to launch canoes down there just before you went up the hill. Is there any pull-in parking at that location?
So right now in that location, people could come and drop off. But parking in that location is not recommended. And that's actually part of the reason why this came up, is that last year there was a significant amount of people parking alongside the roadway, making it less safe as people came off the bridges and the turns and coming in. And all of a sudden on a 19-foot wide pavement for 2 lanes, you see cars parked along the side of the road. So that was one of the impetus that brought it to a fore, because prior to last year, that problem didn't exist. So, and frankly, this year here also, for the next 12 months, there won't be able to be parking due to construction either. So,
yeah, I was just trying to recall that area in my mind, and something in the back of my mind was saying it was deep enough between the road and the river to pull in diagonally and still have adequate room. But I'm not. You're the one that's out there. I'm not.
So, Councilman, we're working on some long-term measures to improve that desire to be able to park off the road,
right?
Drop off canoes and stuff off the road, and to use that boat ramp, because we're all looking to try to increase the use of the river, and that doesn't just mean at Middlebury; it's also downstream and upstream of it. So. This was just this measure is part of that interim measures to try to find a better way to organize that.
Other questions from council? Seeing none. Questions from our audience? Oh, wait a minute, Heidi.
Question. Yeah.
Yes.
How do the residents feel about this? Have the residents been informed?
Oh, okay, sorry. So actually, in this stretch, there's only 2 residents. Because most of this area with the curves and the bike lanes, there are no housing. And it's one of the residents who actually brought the issue up to us, as they saw the parking in that area. And they're actually the site view of what's going on. And after meeting with them, it was like, yeah, we agree with you that area is significant enough for concern to bring it to council for approval.
Thank you.
Tracy,
So it's only a certain area of Middlebury then that you're going to restrict for parking, or is it all of Middlebury?
No, we're only requesting a very short area, and that's from the city limits to Akron Boulevard.
Okay. And since it's under construction now, people are going to get used to not parking there anyway.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Mike,
Isn't there a portion of the Akron Water works there too?
Yes.
That people have been parking on?
Yes, that's true.
Okay, so that'll be included in this.
That is
Okay.
true. That's true.
All
Yes.
right.
We don't want them parking on the 48-inch water line.
No, not at all. Okay.
John, you had a question? No?
Uh,
Anyone else on council? Okay, our audience, Heather, are you interested in asking a question? I'm just curious. No, okay. Back to council.
Move to approve with emergency.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Okay,
Thank you.
No discussion.
well, we had it, I thought. I see the second one is proposed outdoor seating on Franklin Avenue. Jim, you're up again.
Looks like it, but this is a group effort, so other people can help answer the question here. So, so this, I mean, Heather's presentation earlier really epitomized what's going on here. So at council's request and just in the desire to help downtown businesses, we're looking at different ways that could help provide them a chance to be successful during this difficult time. And part of the reason the time is difficult is just that the guidance is changing all the times and the restrictions, and we're trying to be flexible and adapt to it. Now, I think this spring is better than last fall. Last fall, it was really new. And we tried some things last fall. And when I say we, I would say that's not just the city, it's Main Street Kent, it's the business owners, it's everybody. And we were successful in some. The Doro, like Heather said, was very successful. When we closed Franklin on the weekends, that was very successful. We closed Erie Street, not so successful. We put additional tables downtown in different areas, and some areas that were good, and some areas it's like, yeah, we really don't need those tables there. So what we're doing here tonight is looking to learn from what was done before, and with this goal of trying to bring more people downtown safely. And that being requesting to close Franklin Avenue for an extended period from Erie to Main Street. Different than last time, more thought and time has been able to put into this in regards to servicing the businesses during the closure, emergency vehicle access at the same time, working with, Main Street Kent, that Bridget and Heather have worked together to find ways to keep it clean and safe and sanitized during that time. Also making it more refined instead of using trucks to block off the road, other measures that make it look more like a park seating area versus just a road closed that engineering would do. So, and, and the idea is to provide more designated outdoor seating for patios and existing businesses. Even just, and it's important to know that this is very flexible, even as it was just last week that the governor talked about changing restrictions, passing different restrictions due to COVID. That being said, they still include the restrictions on businesses for spacing of tables and max number of people in tables. So, as we look at this, we're requesting the time frame to start on May 7th to make sure we are available for commencement weekend. And tentatively end in October, but that would be the worst case. We would need to be flexible and adjustable. Again, with the goal being to help the downtown businesses and make sure that they're successful. So part of this would be staying in contact with Ray's Place and Taco Tano's and the Venice, and actually talking with Tom Wilkie recently, anyone looking at going into Trano, to see how this is working for them. Because if it isn't working well for them, then we're not meeting our intent purposes, and we should adjust and be flexible to find other ways of doing that. So we know there's a lot of uncertainty with what's going on, but we believe this is a way to help the downtown businesses in addition to other ways that we're working on.
Okay. Mr. Kulak.
Yeah, now we're talking about closing Franklin Avenue all the time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, what are the provisions for the suppliers?
So what we would provide is on the east side, we would leave a clear lane width for, beer trucks and other things to basically move a movable barricade over, drive in, unload, and then drive out the north end coming out on the main street. And I know I have a meeting with Charlie Thomas next week, and we can talk about so they can physically see how that would happen so that there's no uncertainty in their mind.
And just to add to that, that's exactly what we did last year when we closed on Thursday afternoon. They were still getting deliveries on Thursday evening, Friday, and Saturday. So the movable barriers were there. We're also required to do that in order to make sure that we have emergency access for both fire trucks as well as rescue vehicles. So we're working on that. And just to add to Jim's thing, this being a permanent closure, we're really going to try and create a nice space. So we are going to get some nice barriers that we're hoping will have an opportunity to be painted with a nice logo or something unique of that nature with some planters. And one of the other things that we were able to secure last year, but not fully get up functioning, was our sanitation stations, which is running water and sanitary sewer. With this being closed permanently, we'll be able to install those properly. So those are some of the benefits in being able to do this.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
if I
Heidi.
could-
Oh, I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead.
I just wanted to jump in. I know it's so hard with the Zoom. Just carry that point, what Melanie mentioned right there, that please know that Joan has also been front and center of all these discussions too. So safety of the public remains sort of the top priority while we try to help the businesses. So I don't want you to think we're kind of giving up one for the other. It's running in parallel the full time. And I will also say, from our perspective as a city, for a longer period like this, it actually saves us a fair amount of overtime. I mean, Melanie won't talk about it, but she gets pretty stressed because when the other way we were doing it, pulling the tables back each week, well, twice a week, basically, that was done in overtime. And so this will also be, because it's permanent, in a way, be more efficient for us, not only to make it look nicer, but even just in terms of the labor to sustain it. Thank you.
Okay, Heidi, you were first.
Yeah, so what provisions will be made for smokers and dispensing of cigarette butts? Because I can see that this is going to be a smokerama, and also trash. And whose responsibility is this to maintain it on a daily basis? Are we asking for support from these establishments that we're helping out? Just wondering, because it might be a good idea to take that into account, that it could be very well utilized, put it that way, and therefore need attended to even more than once a day.
So I'll address the big picture of trash. We've actually increased our pickup for the season, starting in May through October with our trash hauler. They picked up the trash in all of the barrels 3 times a week. We're going to actually jump that to 6 times a week. As well as that, we are going to install or have a dumpster put in on the Franklin parking lot down there, just past the Trino property line. That's first on what we get and utilize, kind of where farmers market is there. We're going to do that. We're going to kind of do some things to possibly hide it, make it look a little bit better, but that way there'll be direct access for the emptying of those trash cans. And I think I'll let Bridget take it from here, because I believe that's the next thing on your agenda, with working with Main Street Kent and coming up with a schedule for maintenance of the trash. The cigarette butts is a good point, and that's something we'll certainly take a look at. Currently, when we do our street sweeping, which was typically 3 times a week prior to COVID, and then we had to lower it down, we use backpack blowers to kind of get that out there to get that cleaned up. So that's something we can take a look at and see how we can navigate that maybe into maybe some of our cleaning when we do our street cleaning a little bit more. I'll write that.
And perhaps installation of some receptacles.
Sure.
Tracy.
So I'm unmuted, right? Yeah. When you say permanently, I'm assuming that you mean permanently until the COVID crisis is passed, and then it will be opened up again.
That is
You
correct.
don't mean
I'm sorry.
permanently, you mean
Correct.
semi-permanently.
Right. There's nothing that we would change structurally that we couldn't take away in a day
Okay,
and the road back up.
okay.
Yeah, and as Jim pointed out, even if COVID doesn't resolve itself as quickly as we all hope it does, if it's not proving helpful to the businesses, we'll stop it. I mean, right now we've talked to them all, and they're interested in it. They support it because they know they're in a tough spot still. But if it turns out that this is somehow taking business away or diminishing that, we will adjust on the fly. I want to make sure we're very fluid here. Even though we're seeking approval up to that amount of time, that doesn't mean we're not going to necessarily do something different along the way as conditions change.
And another one of those conditions would be instituting festivals coming back to town, and how closing Franklin may impact having festivals, because it's not the intent to take away from not just the brick and mortar businesses, but from Main Street Kent having Oktoberfest or Art and Wine Festival or other types of festivals and those kinds of events.
Any other questions from council?
I have a question. Can we have our city council meetings on Franklin Avenue if it's closed? Will that allow for enough space?
Without the door, with the door.
With the door, yeah.
It depends. It depends on the agenda. We can be flexible.
Mike, I see your hand went up. Are you responding to Gwen, or you gotta have a question?
I'm just laughing.
Okay.
He wants them to happen at the brewery down here on Crane.
Oh, yeah. Well, losing control of this committee here. Heidi.
Well, I would like to make a motion if we're at that stage.
We've got to ask anyone in the audience. I see Heather's here. Anyone in the audience want to ask a question about this or respond to this issue?
Sure. I mean, I'm still here. I think 2020, this was a very solid solution, not solution, but, patch for the businesses and the community. Like, get out of the house and see someone other than your kids and your spouse, like outdoors somewhere. Fantastic. And this clearly is nowhere near over. So I think it's definitely appropriate to continue it. But I think the flexibility of it, the communication of it is super important. Those people that need, and the perception thing, like, I think of events that are poorly attended in town, which there aren't many, but there are some. That perception to people is, why did you close the street and nobody's even there? So the closure being 24/7, 7 days for 30, 60, 90, 120 days, like, I think keeping the thumb on the pulse of this thing and making sure that if a change is needed and the communication is happening with those businesses, that the change is made, because this is for them. This is really the most important thing. So it just, I think it needs to be considered a work in progress, and definitely if I was a business owner, and I know the business owners, they'd much rather have those butts in the seats that they have in their brick and mortar. So Ray's is definitely going to prefer having somebody sit down for 2 hours than selling them a mofo and a beer to go and go sit outside at a picnic table. So, yeah, I think it's great. And when you think of road closures, you think of farmers market and festivals and crowds and loud music and lots of beer drinking and Main Street making a bunch of money and the JC's making a bunch of money and Madonio family dog days making a bunch. Like, we got to be able to get back to that at some point. So there has, the semi-permanence of it, I think is really another important piece of it. So I think it's great. We're ready to hire some people and, contract them out to do the things that need to be done to manage the trash. And I don't know what you could do about cigarettes. I've been there for 10 years and I don't see a solution. I mean, Dan Smith Park cornhole turf is actually one giant ashtray if you take a look at that. So I'm not sure what the solution is to that, but I think, for now, this is definitely the way to go. This is what people need.
All right, Heidi, you had your motion. You want to make your motion?
Okay, I would like to move to approve the outdoor seating on Franklin Avenue as proposed.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, John, do you have any discussion with this since I missed it last
do.
time? No? Oh, Heidi does? Okay, Heidi.
Yeah. I was going to say much of what Heather said about how it's so important to support the businesses and also give people a gathering place. I know that Dan Smith Park is so popular and, but, with social distancing and also people like to move around and be at different parts of the town. I think it really is important to offer these places to people. We're kind of starved for that ability to be with other people, see other people, and enjoy the Dora without having to just go find a park bench somewhere. So I am fully in favor as long as we keep checking in with the businesses.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
If you read the thing, they're asking for an emergency clause. I don't.
With emergency.
It's right here on paper.
Okay, with emergency.
Just clarification.
Okay. Well, any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Okay, the last one for streets is proposed Main Street maintenance agreement, and that's Bridget.
Yes, this is really a housekeeping issue. It actually kind of puts an end cap on the discussion that just occurred. So this is for an agreement with Main Street Kent for the maintenance of the outdoor seating area. After the area was put in place last year, it was very quickly became apparent we needed to deal with some of the trash and some of the sanitation matters in and around the area. Main Street Kent worked with the Community Development Department with me to get that taken care of on an interim basis, and it worked well. We worked on it a little earlier this year, a little more proactive approach once we knew that the pandemic was here to stay for the next few months and this area was going forward. We just kind of put pencil to paper in an agreement to cover those costs for manning the cleanup of the trash and the sanitation of the area for the high volume areas or days, which will be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Main Street Kent also will be working with businesses to volunteer for keeping an eye on the area on the slower days, Monday through Thursday. And we will be monitoring that. We've had several businesses that have volunteered to take a peek out there and make sure that the trash is okay. Having the trash emptied 6 days a week will definitely help. So this is just to formalize that process that Main Street Kent can move forward with the city and get these logistics in place before the area opens on May 7th.
Good. Questions from council for Bridget? Well, seeing none, anyone in the audience? Seeing none, back to council.
Move to authorize with emergency.
Okay, wait, I got Heidi with the emergency clause. Who was second? I missed it.
I'll take the second.
All right, John seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, thankfully, Mr. Mayor, streets and sidewalks are open.
Finance Committee, Mr. DeLeon.
Yes, am I on? Yes. Council salaries, OPRS. Rhonda.
Yes, yes, sir. Thank you. So per our executive session that we had last month, in order to adjust city council salaries to coincide with the Ohio Public Employee Retirement System, to meet the minimum salary in order to receive a full year's worth of credit, council will have to implement a residence committee to discuss this in order to give themselves or to get a raise actually. And so I would like to request that this committee be implemented, and then also that we would like to have the committee finalize their recommendation by September. So that way we have plenty of time to implement any new recommendations they have to get council back to their minimum salary necessary for that full year's credit.
Questions from council? Seeing none. Oh, Jerry. Jerry's got.
Prior, we used to submit the nine council members submitted names. We're going with that same process this time?
How many people on the
I
committee?
think it ended up being actually 5 people with 2 alternates. But each council member submitted a name, and we drew the names out of the box. Is that the system we're gonna do again?
Why don't we?
I didn't think it worked out well.
Yeah. Why don't we have a group discussion over a list of names like we do committees?
Yes. I think that's a good idea. Any other way that you'd want to do it? That seems fair to have me. I don't know about anybody else.
Well, I have a question. Would that not fall under, and we could have that discussion,
Executive order.
Executive session.
Executive session for compensation?
Yeah.
I believe we can.
Yes.
What do you mean, Garrett?
Well, we could have I guess what I mean is we would have a discussion amongst council members about who individuals that we'd want to approach to be on the committee.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that what I would like you to do is decide how many people you would like on this committee. And if it's 5, it's 5. And then I can submit an ordinance like we do with the other boards and commissions. You can take resumes and we can talk about those in executive session.
Okay. So we would need I'm sorry, Mike, we would need we would need to offer up the individuals' names publicly and then have the discussion in executive session.
Yes.
Okay.
Further questions?
Well, Garrett, I would say, just for clarification there, though, it's no different than any other committees.
Right.
If you have people that you think would be well suited for that, you could certainly encourage them to apply. So you could be thinking about who you think you don't have to just rely on those that hear about it and apply. You can sort of let people know that you think would be particularly good.
Roger?
Well, I think for a consistency basis, Hope, don't we have to advertise this committee?
I think that we should, yes.
Yeah, I think that's what we should do too.
But I would also encourage all of you, as Dave said, to kind of encourage people to come forward and sit on this.
Further questions? So should we decide how many people you want to be on it? 105? Or Garrett? You're muted.
Thanks. I would move three people on the committee.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it. I think it's going to be hard to get 7 people.
Yeah, I think, it becomes paralysis by analysis. It's a pretty simple decision. And, for anyone that's gone through more than the last one, they become tedious and painful. And so let's make it as easy as possible.
Tracy?
Yeah, can I amend that to 3 plus 2 alternates?
Sure.
Okay. Well, then we have to vote on that.
Okay, that's an amendment.
Need a second?
Somebody has to second that.
Oh, I'll second that.
Okay. So the amendment is 3 plus 2 alternates. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Now we have to go back to the original motion with 3 plus 2. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is that clear enough for you, Hope? She's not.
No, it is. And I would like, I will be ex officio on that committee. Just
Okay.
meeting with them so that I can make sure that their recommendations come back to you correctly.
Do you need a motion to advertise that or anything?
No, we'll advertise it.
No, okay, okay, all right. Tracy,
Are we going to have, like with the other boards, they have just an application that they fill out. So they're going to have an application also to fill out.
I believe so.
To be consistent, I think they have to.
Yes.
I mean, we just have a boilerplate application for all the commissions.
I think we do.
Yes.
I'd be happy to help with that.
Thanks, Amy. Any other questions?
Ryan has had her hand up.
Does this have to be passed with an emergency? That was my only other question.
Yes, it was.
I would like that.
So should we?
Pick an emergency on it, Garrett. You're muted.
Garrett, you're still muted.
With the emergency, yes. Thank you.
That's why we didn't hear it, right?
That's right.
I don't think we voted on it yet, right? Have we?
We did vote on it.
Okay.
Yes, we did. So is that all for that? We don't need anything else, Rhonda?
We're just chittering now.
Okay. Now we can go with that. It's all taken care of, correct?
Yes.
Okay. This City Franklin Township Fire Service contract rate extension. Who's going to talk to that?
I think Chief Tosca is going to talk about that one.
Oh, there he is.
The chief?
There he is.
Hi, so we have the current 10-year contract we have with Franklin expired at the end of December this last year, and we are in negotiations currently. However, around this time of year, Brian Huff usually does the recalculation of the rate, and we move forward for that year, and it gets retroactive back to January 1st. So we're asking that current rate of $1,393 be extended for up to 5 months. We're pretty confident we'll have a contract hammered out before then, but we just want to give us some extra time to get the contract hammered out and finalized. That brought in last year $898,485 for the calendar year 2020, and the call volume is around 645 calls a year. I don't see that going up and down too much, so those numbers should stay even, and we'll see what the finalized contract looks like.
Questions from council? Seeing none. Anybody in the audience? There's nobody there. Back to council.
Move to approve with the emergency.
Second.
Discussion?
None.
On all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thanks, chief.
Thank you.
Okay, back to Rhonda, I guess, huh?
Yep.
Budget appropriation amendment.
I submitted a budget amendment memo to Dave Roller, city manager, dated March 26, 2021. I would like to request council approve these amendments with emergency. If you have any questions, I can answer them now.
Questions for Rhonda? Seeing none. Anybody in the audience have any? Back to council.
Move to authorize.
With emergency.
Second.
Discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thanks, Rhonda. And that's it for me. Jack up?
Need a motion to go in executive session.
Yes,
So
I move that we go into an executive session in accordance to Ohio Revised Code, paragraph 121.22, section G, item 1, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
Okay, Gwen, second that. Roll call?
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Stidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner is absent, and Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Turner has to be excused. I need a motion to excuse him.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I think everybody needs to drop off except council and the clerk. So adios.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Drop off.
All right.
All right, we're good to go. We're gonna talk about the two applicants for,
It says we're on YouTube. Are we still on YouTube?
Oh, yes, thank you. Hold on one second.
You're welcome.
thank you, John.